Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan. Talking about the outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. Hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife and conservation issues, even some wild game cooking. Been a lot going on since we last talked. Oh, but before that, let me just wish you a happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day weekend. To my father-in-law, Jury, my son, James. My dad is no longer with us, but I'm sure he's having a wonderful Father's Day as well. And if you are a father, a dad, a grandpa, hope you have a good weekend. Hope you have a good day. Hope you get a chance to do what you want. Don't spend it out in the yard, working in the yard, unless that's what you want to do. In many families, I'll use mine as an example. It was my dad who taught me how to hunt and fish. So it was my dad who instilled this love, this passion for the outdoors. He learned from his dad, my grandpa. He passed it along to my dad. My dad got me hunting and fishing. I love it. I'd like to think in some way I passed some information or some interest or passion down to my son James, and he's passing it on to his kids. Speaking of James, I had a chance to fish with him. I haven't had a chance to fish with him very much because he's been working a lot, but I did a charity auction, a charity charter a few days ago. It was a benefit for my granddaughter's softball team. And I said, yeah, I'll donate a charter. And James says, I'll go along with you and be your first mate. He is an excellent fisherman. He is a far better fisherman than I am. And I readily and happily accept that. But we had a really, really good day. One of the best days ever, at least in recent history. The most fish I've caught all summer for sure. Went up into my skinny water. Didn't run crawlers. Flicker shad, flicker minnows, got out a little deeper, some lead core, bounced some offshore tadpoles off the bottom, ran some offshore snap weights, 50-50 method. Had a real good crew with us. One of the guys was celebrating his 40th birthday. And let's just say they had fun. And what a great place what a great way to celebrate a birthday. Out on the water, catching fish. The weather was nice. The fish cooperated. They all seemed to enjoy each other's company. It was just a great, great day. Speaking of great days, I have to give a shout out to the folks at the Walleye for Warriors event. That was last Sunday on Saginaw Bay. I was blessed and honored to be a small part of that event once again. I always look forward to that event, and I've said this many times, and you might get sick of me hearing it, but I don't have many true regrets in life, but one of them is that I never served, and to this day it bothers me. So when I do get a chance to, in whatever way I can, honor or thank those who did, I try to take advantage of that opportunity, and being involved in Walleye for Warriors is one of those chances, one of those events. But everybody involved. Linwood Beach Marina did a great job. The committee did a great job. The volunteers did a great job. The food was excellent. The vets had fun. It was just great. And I'm already looking forward to next year's event. Although I suspect the folks who put it together are glad that there's not an event for another year coming up. What else? Oh, speaking of fishing, I learned something this week. Well, I learn something every week when it comes to fishing, I think. Last year, when I exported my waypoints from my graph on my boat, I exported all my waypoints, and then I deleted the graph, so I wasn't handing all my waypoints over to the next owner. And I put those waypoints on a card, on a micro SD card, right? And I stashed it somewhere so I'd know where it was. Someplace I would never forget where it was. Well, guess what? I forgot where it was. I cannot find that card anywhere. But I do have the Navionics app on my phone, and I had been keeping pretty good track of waypoints on that app. And I thought, okay, can I get these to talk to each other somehow? My phone, my Navionics, and my Lowrance HDS 12. That didn't work out so well, so I thought, okay, so I'll just export the waypoints out of my Navionics app, and then I'll put them on an SD card. I'll put that card into my Lowrance, and I'll import them from there. It wouldn't work. It gave me the option of copy, rename, and delete, and the import option would not come up. So I did some checking around. They said, this is Lowrance. Lowrance said, just change the file name because it exported as a GPX_3. They said, rename the file, delete the _3, so it's just a GPX file, and try that. Well, I was at the boat yesterday, put that card in, boom. It showed up, I imported all my waypoints, and I was good to go. Couple of lessons here. Don't forget the card you store your waypoint on, and more importantly, have multiple backups, multiple sources. Because I had most of my waypoints on my Navionics app, I was good. But again, the folks at Lowrance were telling me, you don't even need to do that. If you put, like in my case, a Lowrance unit on my boat and put the Lowrance app on your boat and sync the two of them, every time you go out to the boat, the two will talk to each other, and every waypoint and marker and trail that's on your unit on your boat will end up on your phone. How cool is that? How did we ever get by with all of this technology? How did we ever get by, even with Lowrance C? How about before Lowrance C? Flashers. We didn't have LCD screens and GPS and... Does it make us better fishermen, better anglers? I don't know. The last Wednesday night live I did was at the Brenton USA Hunting Rifle plant in Lansing. I talked very briefly about this last week, but I want to follow up on it now. I went down there to pick up my new 350 Legend that I ordered a few weeks ago. Beautiful rifle. I'm telling you, an absolutely gorgeous rifle made here in Michigan, a family-owned operation. I couldn't be happier. So the next day, I posted a picture of me online with a big smile on my face, holding that AR-style hunting rifle. Holy cow. Did the insects come out of the woodwork? The comments I got on that, you would have thought I was a domestic terrorist. What can you possibly do with it? And in the post, I said, I'm so happy to get my new Michigan-made 350 Legend from Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and I hope to take a Michigan bear with it this fall. But apparently that wasn't good enough. People thought for some reason that I was holding this assault rifle in my hands, getting ready to do something evil, to hurt somebody with it. My hunting rifle, my Brenton USA, just happens to be an AR-style rifle, is not meant for evil. I will not do evil with it. It's like a tool. It's like a hammer. An evil, demented, sick person, if they choose to, can do evil with a hammer. An evil, sick, demented person, if they choose to, can do evil with a gun. It's not the object, it's not the tool, it's the person. If you lay a hammer on a table and you lay a gun on a table and it's surrounded by good people, nothing bad is going to happen. If you put it there surrounded by dirtbags or crazy people, something bad may happen, but it's not the tool. Why do people not all people, why do some people not grasp that? And then, of course, I got the comments from the firearm and ballistic experts who are always out there on Facebook. Well, you are undergunned with a Michigan black bear with a 350 Legend. Well, no, I'm not. If I was going to buy a gun to shoot a bear, I would buy a 12-gauge slug. But I didn't buy the gun to shoot a bear. I bought the 350 Legend to be a versatile platform, a versatile caliber that I could shoot a bear, a deer, coyote with. I just love the experts out there. Crazy world. And common sense seems to be uncommon these days, and I'm not quite sure why. But what can we do about it? We can go outdoors. We can go hunting. We can go fishing. We can take our kids with us. We can take our families with us. We can take our neighbors with us. We can get our friends involved. The more we do outdoors, the more we get back to Mother Nature, the more we, unfortunately, have to be involved in the process. You can't just sit back anymore. Because if we sit back, if we good, common sense, good-hearted people sit back and do nothing, the crazy idiots will do something, and we will be left behind. And we can't do that anymore. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show after the break, Chris Kreiner of Dusk to Dawn Outdoors, talking about summertime coyote hunting, predator hunting. That's something we don't hear much about. Jason Garvon from the Michigan Wildlife Council. In hour number 2, Captain Bobby Sullivan, Nick Green of MUCC. And in hour 3, Jim Chamberlain and wild game chef Dave Minar. That's coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM. That's 580 AM. You can hear the show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. Sorry about that. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by, speaking of the UP, Rapid River Knives. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com is the website, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com. As always, I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket, and I always do. I find it to be not only a very versatile piece of gear, but a very well-made, quality piece of gear, a beautiful piece of gear. And they make so many different kinds of knives: pocket knives, folding knives, gutting knives, caping knives, kitchen knives. Check out the website, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. Or better yet, go to their showroom on US 2 just outside of Rapid River. It is an amazing place. It's a destination. If you are in that part of the UP, you need to stop by and see the Rapid River showroom. Check out the website, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. I was talking a couple of weeks ago about how I had a very interesting turkey season this spring and just didn't see the number of birds that I normally do or expect to. And a lot of people said, Avery, that's because there are too many predators in your area. They're knocking down the number of birds. Now, I don't know if that was the case or not, but I think it's a very valid concern, a very valid point. So I got thinking about all my buddies who are predator hunters, and, you know, I used to think of predator hunting, coyote hunting, as a wintertime sport. But some of these guys who are really serious, really into it, have turned it into a year-round passion, a year-round pursuit. Chris Kreiner is one of those guys. You can follow his hunts and his exploits many places online, including the Facebook page, Dusk to Dawn Outdoors, Dusk to Dawn Outdoors on Facebook. And Chris is with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line now. Chris, welcome back. How are you?
Good, Mike. How about yourself?
You know, I'm doing good. And I believe the last time we talked, or at least in my mind, I thought of you or think of you more of a whitetail guy. Did you kind of make a shift here, Chris?
So I think the last time we had spoke was possibly back as far as 2010, 2011, when we were trying to do, I was trying to help my uncle with some fishing stuff down in Florida and some how-to fishing videos called the Fisherman's Digest. And, you know, so we were talking a little bit about that. And then, you know, from a video standpoint, you know, trying to get into the whitetail side of things. And But being in Michigan, it is tough to shoot the quality of deer and get it on video that I was really looking for. And to be honest, it was a lot of work. And 2015 is when I had my first kid, and then had my second in 2017. So once you start that family life, your priorities greatly change. And it was December 2016 when they passed the center fire at night for coyotes. And also at the same time, they allowed coyote hunting year round. Prior to that, coyote hunting was from, I believe it was June 15th through April 15th, somewhere in that ballpark, because they wanted to protect the dens and the pups. And so they didn't allow hunting during that time of year. Obviously, night hunting was part of predator hunting back in those days, but you were restricted to a rim fire or a shotgun. Rim fire, it'll work. There's a lot of guys that do use that and use it successfully. However, your shot placement has to be pretty pinpoint. So that's where the center fire law really benefited the nighttime hunter in general. And that's when I jumped into, I was always a predator hunter prior to that, but I jumped into the night game since I had a family. Doing daytime activities was really restricted, trying to spend time with the family. And then once they go down to bed, that was my time to get out in the field. And that's where the predator hunting really took off for me. And
the hot spell that we're having right now as we record the show, is it worthwhile to go out then? Do the animals, are they active in this heat, or after dark when it cools down a little bit, it doesn't matter?
It really, when it is really, really hot, I do notice that there's a slight change in their behavior. I was down in Texas last summer, and we were dealing with 90 to 98 degree days every day. And it was only getting down into the low 80s at night, and I couldn't get a coyote to cooperate to save my life. So I definitely think it has something to do with it, because I went back down to Texas in January, and coyotes were everywhere, and they were responding immediately, and we were dealing with 60-degree temperatures. So a huge difference in their behavior based on the environmental conditions.
But you've had a pretty good run lately, though. I mean, you guys have put down a bunch of dogs.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks. So, it seems like once the females hit the dens and they're having their pups, they don't seem to travel a lot. And what I've noticed, however, there's still pairs of coyotes out there that never breed. So those ones are always out there running around. They're more transient, and they're spending time just hunting and invading other people's space, so to speak, or other coyotes' space. So those ones are always available to hunt. But the breeding pairs, usually it seems like the responses really die down. We don't get as many coyotes during that small window, which is usually about April and May. And then, the last 2 weeks, we've found a lot of breeding pairs that have already, they're leaving their pups. The pups are getting old enough to take care of themselves, and they're responding really well. In the last 2 weeks, we've put, between myself and I've been out with a bunch of buddies, and we've gotten 15 in the last 2 weeks.
Wow. And, Chris, some people are going to say, well, this is kind of cruel, kind of mean that you're hunting these things during the period when they're having their pups. But man, if we didn't do something to try to control Michigan's coyote population, we'd be absolutely overrun, wouldn't we?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was the whole point and the reasoning behind the center fire at night being passed, is because the coyote populations were getting completely out of control. And there wasn't enough hunters out there to control them, and the methods available just weren't, I guess, conducive to making quick, clean kills. So not only did the center fire at night allow us a more lethal weapon to use at night, put them down quickly and humanely, it also put a lot more hunters in the field. I can't tell you how many people on a year after year after year, you see a huge growth in this sport. And it's great. I love seeing it. I love seeing new guys getting out there. A couple of the guys I've been hunting with recently, they've never night hunted before, And gosh, in the last month, I think they've each gotten a couple, 3 coyotes, and they're diving full into it. So it's quite the addiction.
Well, and you've been able to capitalize on this, and I mean in a positive sense. Your video expertise, the fact that you've kind of switched your focus over to predator hunting. I mean, you're hosting a TV show now. You're putting a bunch of video up online. This is pretty cool, Chris.
Yeah. I was offered an opportunity last spring to host a program called Night Shooter, and that is through Tactical Life magazine and Athlon Outdoors. And it was quite the sweet opportunity. And I think it was more or less because when I got into the nighttime predator hunting, I also, started with the nighttime photography. And the photography is what kind of set me apart, I guess. In all honesty, anybody can call in coyotes. Some people struggle initially, but you keep at it and keep working at it, you will kill a coyote. There's enough of them out there. But that was part of the thing, getting into the Night Shooter program. I'm able to share my experiences and share what is successful for me, for the people that are wanting to get into the sport.
Well, there's nothing cooler than, a night shot of a successful hunter. I know it's hard because you've got no light to work with. You've got to create your own light, but it can be a pretty dramatic, very vibrant picture. Absolutely.
If you can figure out the lighting, I mean, I did a podcast with the other group here in Michigan, the Overdrive Outdoors guys, and I talked to them about nighttime photography, and I helped them explain to them that even with a cell phone, if you provide, it's not a great photo, but if you provide lighting in the right direction in the right area, you can come up with a dramatic photo that looks decent, and people can respect the fact that additional time was taken for that photo.
Going back to the hunting aspect after dark, I would think that the darkness would be a big negative factor, but I feel like the way you guys are hunting these days, it's actually easier and more productive to hunt after dark.
Absolutely. So the difference being is during the daylight, if you're trying to hunt coyotes, you have to find some cover of some sort. Tuck into a brush pile, fence row, something to hide your outline. At night, at night, coyotes are more active. B, you do not need to stand in a fence row or cover unless the moon is super bright like it has been the last couple nights. But for the most part, I stand within 200 to 500 yards of a wood lot. I mean, right out in a wide open field, and I call the coyotes out to me. There's no reason to get in tight to them, because at night, like I said, they feel comfortable under the cover of darkness. And that also brings up another good point. From the moment I step foot out of the truck, I'm hunting. Because coyotes will be anywhere at any given time. I would say probably half a dozen times a year, we get a coyote within 10 yards of our truck. We step out into the field, and there's a coyote right there already. And all it takes is a little lip squeak or put on a little, baby cottontail coaxer, and we get them into our lap and take them out. And not to mention the technology that's available to us as night hunters. I currently run a Pulsar Thermion 2 LRF XP50 Pro, which is a new unit that just came out this year.
There's a lot of initials, a lot of numbers there.
That is a long name.
Hang tight, Chris. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, I want to talk more about this technology, which is almost overwhelming. But as I was talking about earlier, technology in the fishing world too. It's technology is part of our world these days. Why not use it if you want to take advantage of it in your hunting and fishing pursuits as well? If you don't want to, fine, then don't use it. Hey, a lot of options, a lot of choices. Hunt your hunt, fish the way you want to fish. But Chris is really into technology, and I think it's pretty cool. We'll talk more about him. If you want to follow his hunting adventures online, one place to do that on Facebook, the Dusk to Dawn Outdoors crew on Facebook. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, wrap up our conversation with Chris Kreiner here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WBCK in Battle Creek, that's 95.3 FM. In Caro, 2 stations, WKYO, 1360 AM, and WIDL, 92.1 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge as well on many stations, including News Talk 1400 WKNW, that's out of the Sioux. Talking now about summertime predator hunting. Now, if we would have brought up this topic a few years ago, there wouldn't be a lot to talk about. But these days, midsummer, although it's not midsummer yet, summertime predator hunting is a big deal. It's a very effective way to help control our predator population. And it's a great way to get out and have some hunting fun in the summertime, because usually I think of summer as the fishing season. Well, if you don't want to give up your hunting, you can continue on like Chris Kreiner does. You can follow his hunting adventures on the Facebook page, Dusk to Dawn Outdoors, Dusk to Dawn Outdoors. And Chris, you were talking about this TV show as well. Where is that on? When is that on?
So this show currently is an online-based show, and you can follow that on Tactical Life's website. It is currently just in the beginning stages. We filmed season 1 in July of last year, and that was released in October. And we just finished filming season 2 the first week of May, and that should be released in a couple of months. And the purpose of Night Shooter is to share our outdoor nighttime experiences. And we were filming in Texas, and we all know how much of a hog problem Texas has. So we were able to take down several hogs, and along with a pile of coyotes too. So it was a great adventure. We got a lot of great footage to share with everyone.
Well, as a guy who spent a lot of years in TV, both broadcast and cable, I think online is the way to go. So I think you guys are smart in pursuing that option.
Yeah, they're going the right direction for sure. The amount of money that it costs to broadcast TV anymore is quite outrageous and expensive, and not very many companies are spending that money on sponsorships for TV. So it's tough money to find.
How do we get started in nighttime predator hunting in the summertime? Is it different than a wintertime setup? Obviously, you don't need the heavy clothes and such, but what's the difference? How do we get started?
So for the most part, you can start off as cheap as you want or as expensive as you want. Sky's the limit. There's still guys that I know today that started hunting, 5 years ago, just using a red light mounted to their rifle and a red light on their head. And they still go out that way, and they're still successful. I wouldn't say it's a problem with red lights, but the thing is if you're not careful in your movement, the coyote can spot the movement of the light, and you may not see the coyote that might be in the shadows of that knoll in the field. And that's where thermal technology comes in. Is thermal can pick up an ear that is moving through the field, and that's back in the shadows that you wouldn't see with your red light. So you can start off for, the red light systems, you can start off at $200, and with the thermal systems, they run upwards of $6,000. So if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I would ever spend $5,000 and jump into the thermal world, I would have said you were crazy. I cannot spend that much money on a coyote. But yeah. Here I am, a short 5 years later, and I've got as much bells and whistles on my equipment as I possibly can.
Well, it's like anything else, Chris. It's like boating or fishing or hunting or golf or sailing or bicycling, whatever. I mean, when you first get into it, if you're smart about it, you don't put a lot of money until you see if you really like it. And then if you do, the sky's the limit. I mean, it's your pastime, it's your passion, it's your fun. So you kind of do what you can afford and whatever you find to be effective. And this thermal imaging, some of my buddies are in this, and they share video with me, and it's fascinating to watch what's going on in our Michigan woods after dark or our Michigan fields after dark, and you can with thermal.
Yes, and I share a lot of the information that I receive with. I get calls all the time from deer hunters saying they got a coyote problem, so I'll come out and I'll help them. But not only do I get to help them with their predator population, I can also help them with their deer numbers. I can tell them, hey, I seen 100 deer out in this field tonight, and I take screenshots because with these thermal imagers also they have recording or photo options, so you can take screenshots of what the scope is seeing. So obviously during the summertime we have these big velvet bucks. The bucks are starting to pop out their velvet, and the velvet being as warm as it is, you can really make out what the bucks look like. So I take those pictures and those images and I share them with the landowners, and that information can be really valuable to them as they go into the fall. And these same landowners also, they're running scouting cameras typically year round. So if they happen to get a coyote on their scouting camera, they're calling me up saying, hey, they were out there last night. And that sometimes gives me a trigger to get out there tonight and see if I can call them in.
Well, and you do a great job of it, Chris. You do a great job of sharing this information, sharing the video. One of the places is the Facebook page, Dusk to Dawn Outdoors. On Facebook, Dusk to Dawn Outdoors. I think it's cool what you guys are doing, and I appreciate the fact that you're sharing this info and helping others get involved in the sport, Chris.
Absolutely. We enjoy doing it. The entire group of guys and I, that's all we live for is get out in the fields together at night, have some great camaraderie. And, man, that's a tongue twister of a word, isn't it? And just hang out with the guys and have a good time. And that's what it's all about. We're not successful every night, and it wouldn't be hunting if you were.
Exactly.
We have some great nights and we have some bad nights, and that's just hunting. So we really enjoy it.
All right, Chris, and I enjoy watching your adventures and exploits. Again, the Facebook page, Dusk to Dawn Outdoors, Dusk to Dawn Outdoors on Facebook. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll check in with Jason Garvon of the Michigan Wildlife Council right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra, 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ, 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website, MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. And remember, if you want to save 25% in signing up to become an MUCC member, like I am, you can use the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE, and save 25% on your MUCC membership, and that's at the website, MUCC.org. While you are online, I would ask you to check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head over to this website here for MIOutdoors.org. Here for MIOutdoors.org, the website of the Michigan Wildlife Council, and that's a group I've been working with for several years, not a few years now. And as soon as I heard what these folks were all about, and that's promoting the outdoors, promoting the outdoor heritage, getting the word out about how important hunting and fishing is for Michigan, I said, I want to work with you guys, and I've been blessed to do that for a few years now. Jason Garvon is a member of the Michigan Wildlife Council. He is a professor at Lake Superior State, and he's with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jason, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Doing well, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. So what's going on in your world right now, Doc?
Looks like summer has finally showed up here in the UP. Nice
with a
and warm.
vengeance, right?
That's right. That's right. It's not messing around here. I think we're going to enjoy some fishing. I've been enjoying some paddling. It's been a great time to be on the water.
Absolutely. And there at the Michigan Wildlife Council, Jason, what is your niche? What is your role? Do the members all come from different backgrounds, different perspectives? How does this work?
Yeah, so we have several members from different backgrounds. So some members represent people who have purchased a hunting and fishing license, and that's the group I'm in. But we have someone representing the finance industry, the outdoors business industry, and representing the farm side of things as well.
And the goal, though, with all those members is the same, and that's what?
So promote the importance of hunting, fishing, and the conservation of wildlife and funding of wildlife management.
And there in the UP where you are, it would seem to be kind of common sense, if there is such a thing in the world anymore. But the goal is to educate the people downstate primarily, right?
It is, and our target audience tends to be southeastern Michigan and some of the more metro Detroit area currently.
Jason, why should we? All right, I'm in mid Michigan. You're in the UP. Why should we care if the people in southeast Michigan get it? Some things come up on votes, and we want people to understand the importance of hunting and fishing and supporting wildlife when they go to the polls. And I think that's what it comes down to. I mean, the population center is in the southern part of the state. They can control what we do when they go to the polls, so we want them to be educated. And above and beyond that, if we can get the people in southeast Michigan to embrace outdoor recreation, hunting and fishing, it's just great for our psyche. It's great for our lifestyle.
I think so. And in fact, our last meeting was in early May in Detroit, and I actually had a chance to fish the Detroit River for the first time ever for walleye, and it was a fantastic experience. So you don't have to come to the UP to get great fishing.
Oh no, it's a tremendous resource there, and that must have been kind of an interesting experience for you to come down and fish that urban fishery, which we have so many of them across the state.
Yeah, it was really unique. Instead of seeing nothing but trees, you're in this kind of metropolitan area. There's big buildings, and yet, we just caught a lot of fish, and it was a great experience.
And Jason, I know your work at the Michigan Wildlife Council is effective. You are moving that needle. You are getting people to listen to your message.
That's correct. And so looking at how far the needle has moved since the beginning, before I was on the council until now, we've jumped up about 30% of all Michiganders understanding wildlife management is necessary for thriving populations. 7 in 10 Metro Detroit residents can correctly identify hunting and fishing license as a source for wildlife management rather than tax dollars. Those are some great numbers.
Well, those are. In any marketing or promotions or PR campaign, if you can reach that kind of percentage, that's great. Will the job ever be done, Jason? Are you guys ever going to be able to sit back and just dissolve the council and say our work is done now?
Mike, I kind of hope not. I think there's going to be some different avenues to go down once we accomplish one goal. I think several more areas are going to pop up, and we'll start going down that road.
Well, and when you do that, I will look forward to getting the word out about that as well, Jason. Keep up the good work. The Michigan Wildlife Council's the website is hereformioutdoors.org, hereformioutdoors.org, and the Here for Generations campaign is doing a great job. Jason, we'll talk again soon. Have fun fishing.
All right, thanks. Always a pleasure, Mike.
All right, pleasure is mine. We'll take a break here for the top of the hour. When we come back in hour number 2, we're going to talk with Captain Bobby Sullivan. Now, Bobby, his client, caught a new state record king salmon on Lake Michigan last summer. These days, he's over on the east side of the state fishing walleye. I want to talk with him about that comparison. You go east for gold, west for silver. We'll talk more about that and more coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yes, Outdoor Magazine is first and foremost a radio show. And I say that just to kind of differentiate it from all the different outdoor-related podcasts that are out there these days. And I have nothing against podcasting. I love podcasting. I embrace podcasting, and I do many podcasts myself. But I do think the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine Radio, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station, because you get your local news and weather and sports, even your local commercials. Maybe there's a sale you want to take advantage of. And the radio stations get the content before the podcast version is uploaded for the most part. So again, if you can, I would encourage you to listen to Outdoor Magazine Radio on your local radio station. If you can't, isn't it nice to know that there is a podcast version of the show available? It's the same content. It's just you listen to it somewhere else. Where do you listen to it? Well, you can listen to it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. On my Facebook page, you can find it on Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, everywhere. Even YouTube. I put a version of the radio show up on YouTube, and people watch/listen to the content there. So. However you hear my voice, I do certainly appreciate it. Speaking of podcasts, though, I do monthly podcasts specifically for some companies that I work with: Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Primal Tree Stands, and Polarcraft Boats. In fact, when we're done in the studio today, we're going to record this month's Polarcraft podcast, and coincidentally, I will have Bobby Sullivan, Captain Bobby Sullivan, on the Polarcraft podcast, but he's also joining us in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show as well. I ran into Bobby last weekend at the Walleye for Warriors event on Saginaw Bay at Linwood Beach, and I thought, it might be very interesting, because you might remember one of Bobby's customers, one of his charter customers, his clients, last summer caught a new state record king salmon on Lake Michigan. And I found him over on Saginaw Bay chasing walleye. So I wanted to talk to Bobby about that and more, and he has graciously agreed to give us some time. Bobby, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks again, Mike, for having me.
Yeah, hey, listen, real pleasure. I'm doing great. Fishing was good for me yesterday, and it was real nice to see you at Linwood Beach at Walleye for Warriors last weekend.
Good. It was nice seeing you again.
And I love seeing guys like you who could be out on a paid, charter making money on the day, and you take some time off and volunteer your time and your gas money and your boat and take those vets out, Bobby. That's a nice thing you guys do.
Yeah, it is. It's the least I can do, give up a day or two every year to do events like these. Well, they're some of my special trips of the year. Yeah,
and I know the folks appreciate it. So listen, right now, this time of year, you're over on Saginaw Bay concentrating on walleye for a while yet. When will you jump over to Lake Michigan?
So I think I'm going to pull my boat out on July 10th, and I'm gonna go over the weekend of the Offshore Classic. I'm not going to fish, but I have a couple trips I have to take out that weekend. So about middle of July.
I've got to believe that's interesting for guys like you. It's got to break up your summer and give you a fresh perspective. If you stayed over and chased walleye all year, you might get sick of it. Plus, the walleye action slows down. Walleye are great. I love them. They don't fight. But then you can go west and get into the silverfish and fish that'll tear your arms off. How cool is that?
Yeah, that is. It's nice breaking up the monotony of walleye fishing. Cleaning a bunch of fish every day to going over and actually catching fish that pull like yesterday.
I know. I was out yesterday, and we caught some nice fish and some fun fish, but there were still times you look at that board and go, is that a fish or is that something else? You don't worry about that with kings, do you?
No, you don't have to worry about that at all.
How is the walleye fishery on Saginaw Bay holding up this summer, Bobby?
The fishing has been good. We've had really good catches throughout the spring and summer. And the size of the fish are pretty nice. I would say we're averaging probably like a 17 to 21, 22-inch average on most fish. We do still have a couple fish around 14 inches every trip, but we've caught biggest one I've caught this year is 26. So the fishery seems really healthy.
Yeah, it is. It is great to see. I mean, last summer we caught a lot of those, 13-inch fish. They're growing. We got a good, healthy, solid fishery. How do you chase them out there, Bobby? You a crawler guy, a spoon guy, a plastic guy, crankbait guy?
I'm a spoon and plastic guy. I grew up running spoons.
The last couple of years, I've been running more plastics. Well, last 5-6 years, but I'll run my plastics on monofilament behind the board, or I'll also run lead core or weighted steel. My favorite way to catch them is running spoons, so going 2.5 to 2.8 mile an hour and just covering some water.
Now, this weighted steel thing has me fascinated. You know, for a while it was lead core. What's the advantage of steel over lead?
The advantage of steel is you have less line out for the same depth as you would with lead core. So instead of running 60 feet for a 2-color, you would run 40 feet to weighted steel. So it's faster to get out, faster to bring the fish in. It just is more efficient.
Well, and for a guy like you in the business, efficiency is a concern.
Yes. Yep. Trying to box as many fish as we can every day. The faster you can do it, the better. So not the faster to catch the fish, but to put the stuff out to get a chance at getting them again. Yeah,
no, I know exactly what you're saying. The more baits in the water, the more time they can spend in the water, the quicker they can get to those depths, the more fun your clients can have.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so describe a typical spread for me. Like if you were running cranks, and I'm always curious about this because there are different schools of thought. Do you run your longest lines, your longest leads on the outside, or do you run them on the inside of your spread?
So this is the conversation we have all the time. What I do with running so many rods, I try to run 14 to 16 rods. So sometimes I'll have 8 boards out on a side. Just to keep from getting tangles, I will run my longest leads on the outside. That way you don't run into the chance of, for example, if you're running a mono rod 40 foot out on the outside and you have one 100 foot on the inside, I feel I get more tangles that way. So I'll run it opposite of what most people do. I'll run my long lines on the outside and my shorter leads on the inside. And I'll do the same with lead core if I'm running crankbaits on them. I'll run a 4-color on the outside and a 2-color on the inside, but that's only using crankbaits. If I'm running spoons, I'll run the 2-color on the outside and the 4 on the inside.
I'm actually glad to hear you say that because I was doing just the opposite until a couple of years ago, and I switched over based on charter captain's advice, less tangles, to running my longest leads on the outside, and you're still going to get tangles, but it does seem to help.
Yes, yeah, it cuts down on the tangles a lot. Like you say, you're still going to have them if you're pulling a 6-inch walleye on one of your inside boards. It's going to lift that lure up, and tangles are going to happen.
Yeah. So how long will, in an average year, again, if there is such a thing as an average year, how long will that inner Saginaw Bay walleye fishery likely hold up?
In years past, I've always done good until end of July. The last week of July, we always still have good fishing. But I normally take my boat over to Ludington around the end of July. This year, I'm going a little bit earlier. There's captains in the marina the last couple of years that have stayed and fished for walleyes, and they've had great trips through the month of August. So I would say any more until the end of August. And fishing is a little more spotty than it, is in June and July, but they still have good catches.
And what is it? Why does it tend to slow down? Is it water temp and the fish move out looking for cooler water? What are your thoughts on that?
That's what I believe. Water temp plays a key. That bay gets really warm. A lot of times in August, your best fishing will be around areas that have weed beds, kind of in that shallow water, or out by 1 and 2 and the deeper water. But I just feel like more fish go out deeper at that time of year.
All right, so then when you make the jump from the bay, Saginaw Bay, over to Lake, you're out of Manistee or Ludington, Bobby?
I am out of Ludington.
Ludington. Obviously you have to change your gear, your tackle, you got to change all your rigging, right? That's got to be a big job right there.
Yeah, those, I have completely different rods and tackle for, walleyes or salmon. So it normally takes me about a day or two to get everything switched over, take all the walleye fishing gear off, then put all the salmon fishing gear back on the boat.
And then is it also a change in mindset too?
It is. It is a change of mindset. Going from trying to box almost 40 fish a trip to, a good day, 10 to 15 fish over there. So you're running different gear. It's a little bit of a different program over there, but it is a different mindset.
Hang on, Bobby. I want to follow up on that and more. We're talking with Captain Bobby Sullivan of Icebreaker Charters. His website, icebreakerfishingcharters.com, icebreakerfishingcharters.com. You can book a trip with Bobby over on Saginaw Bay for walleye or over on Lake Michigan for salmon and trout. And I want to talk about the differences, the similarities, the gear, and I got to talk more about his client catching that state record fish. And we talked to him last year about that, but I want to see what his thoughts are on it now. Captain Bobby Sullivan, icebreakerfishingcharters.com, icebreakerfishingcharters.com. More right here, coming up after the break on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. Let's jump over to the other side of the state, WIOS in Tawas, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And now we can go north of the bridge to Iron Mountain, WMIQ, 1450 AM, just a few of the more than 30 Outdoor Magazine radio affiliates. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Kudos to all the folks at Linwood Beach Marina for their hospitality in helping to put on the Walleye for Warriors event on Saginaw Bay last weekend. And that's where I ran into Captain Bobby Sullivan of Icebreaker Charters, icebreakerfishingcharters.com, icebreakerfishingcharters.com. And I decided to get Bobby back on the show here this week. Bobby, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. The change, I want to go back to the change in mindset between fishing walleye on Saginaw Bay and fishing salmon on Lake Michigan. For one thing, when you start fishing kings, you got to get up a lot earlier these days, don't you?
Yeah, a typical morning over there starts getting up at 4 a.m. is the time I wake up. And in Linwood, sometimes we don't leave the dock until 7 or 8 o'clock. So it's a lot earlier, and it's a lot later at night over on the west side. By the time you get back from your trip, get fish cleaned. Walleye fishing is a little bit more relaxing.
So are you running doubles? I mean, ideally, on at least some days you want to run doubles, right?
Yeah. I try to run doubles on the weekends, and maybe one day during the week I'll run a double.
That's got to be exhausting.
Yeah. And over on the west side right now, I have 2 full weeks booked with doubles. So,
and you know why? Yeah. You know why, right? Because of that fish you guys caught last summer. That's what put you on the map, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Last year I was pretty much full when we caught the fish, but the phone calls came in and they haven't stopped since. So still getting a lot of people calling asking for trips. I have very limited availability right now over in Ludington.
Well, that's a good thing, though, right?
Yes, it is.
Do you run a first mate, Bobby?
Some trips I do. Other trips I don't. It's hard to get a first mate on the weekdays when I take time off to fish during the week. So I'll fish a mate about a quarter of my trips, or if I'm running a lot of doubles in a row, I'll try to get a mate.
Yeah, that would be something to run that boat by yourself.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about your setup for kings.
So compared to walleyes, when I go walleye fishing, I try to run almost all the same thing. If I'm running spoons, I'll pretty much run all spoons. If I'm running plastics, I'll run all plastics, whether they're shad wraps or flicker shads. I don't really mix up my program too much when I'm fishing. I might mix up the sizes of the baits, but if I'm fishing spoons, I'm just going with all spoons. Over on the west side, I have a mixture between flashers and flies, flashers and cut bait, J-plugs later in the year, spoons, different sizes of spoons. So it's a mixture of baits that I'm running at the same time. I always have like a big paddle and fly down on my shoot rigger, or a big paddle and meat rig down on the shoot rigger. My wire divers I'll run on one side, like my low, I'll run a flasher and fly. The other side, I'll run a flasher and meat rig on the other side. My high divers, it depends on what the fish are biting on. If I'm running spoons or J plugs, or maybe even another flasher and fly on them. So it's a different mentality of going from running the same thing the whole time to mixing it up, just kind of seeing what the fish want.
Why do J plugs not turn on until later in the season? Why are they not a springtime bait?
I don't know. For some reason, everyone's spoons and flashes and flies earlier in the year. I don't fish much in the early part of the year for salmon, but I know when I get over to Ludington at the beginning of August, we'll catch a few fish on plugs that time of year, but it seems like the middle of the month, towards the end of the month, they start producing more fish. I don't know if it's making the fish mad or the size of the bait fish that they're keying in on. I can't really answer that question, but I do know at the beginning of the month, it's tough to catch them on J plugs sometimes, but towards the end of the month, I'm pretty J plug heavy.
Another big difference between your east side fishing and your west side fishing, water clarity.
Yeah. Over on the west side, a lot of clear water that we're fishing unless we're in shallow or at the pier heads. Sometimes when I'm pier head fishing, I like going in that dirty water, in that shallow water. But over on this side of the state, I like watercolor that's got a greenish hue to it. I don't like the clear water. I never really do good in that clear water. It's gotta have like a tea stain or a dark green stain to it for me to do pretty good.
And then you get over on the west side though, and you're fishing a lot of water that is a lot clearer than what you see on Saginaw Bay the rest of the summer.
Yep, a lot clearer over there.
And so, how does that affect are you putting your baits out farther? Are you putting your baits down deeper? How do you deal with that?
I kind of let the fish dictate what I do. The first thing in the morning on my downriggers, I'll start running my leads real short to the ball. Sometimes it can be 10 feet behind the ball, 20 feet behind the ball. Sometimes it depends on what I'm running. I don't like to run a flasher really far behind the downriggers, but I just kind of let the fish dictate what they do. Sometimes you really have to stretch out the leads later in the morning on like a spoon on your downrigger. All my divers, I run about a 40 or 50-foot leader on them, and we hand line the fish in. So I don't let that change too much, but sometimes it can make a difference over there.
Well, and again, going back and forth on a comparison here, Saginaw Bay, you might be fishing 20 feet of water. Lake Michigan, you might be fishing 200 feet of water. So how do you know how deep in that column to target? A lot of times you're looking for the water temperature. Try to find that thermocline. And I run some baits up above it, 10, 15 feet above it. Then I'm running baits, 15, 20 feet below it. Sometimes even closer to the bottom. Some big kings will lay, way out of temp, down in that cold water. But I'm trying to fish that temperature break, whether it's 50 to 54 degree water. Over on the bay, water temperature really doesn't play a key. I'm fishing from top to bottom every day. I'm not running all my baits down in the bottom 4 foot. I still, when I'm out in the deep water in 25, 26 foot, I'll still run a flicker shad or a shad wrap, 20 feet behind the board. And sometimes those are the best rods. And how are you seeing that thermocline? On Lake Michigan, do you have a temp probe down, or can you see it visually on your graph? On Lake Michigan, I have a temp probe that I run on my shoot rigger. And I also, a lot of the days, I can mark it on my graph. But I'm pretty much using that fish hawk every trip out there. You mentioned downriggers. Back in the day, years ago, when I used to fish over there, it was all downriggers. And if you were running a dipsy, you were really being creative. You were really out there. These days, how many riggers do you run on your boat? On my boat, I run 3. I run 2 out downs and I run 1 shoot rigger. I'll try to run 4 divers every day, 2 off of each side. I'll run a high and a low on each side. Then if traffic allows, I'll try to run about 3 boards a side. So, but sometimes you can, if you get in that heavy traffic, if I have to fish up at the point,
Some days you can only run one board aside. Some days you can't even run any. But I try, when traffic's that bad, I try to not fish up there.
And what boards do you use for kings? For
kings, I've been running the Dreamweaver Ninja boards. I've had really good luck with them. I have a couple of the big offshores, and I have some TX44s from church. But almost all the time now I'm running those Dreamweaver Ninja boards.
Okay, in the couple of minutes we have left, then let's go back to this new state record king that your guy caught last summer. 40, help me out. What was it? What are the numbers on it?
47.86.
I forgot it was that big.
Yep.
Oh. And did you know, remind us, did you know right away when that fish was hooked, the quality, the caliber of fish you had on?
I knew it was a good fish. I never thought it was going to be a state record. It was probably a 45-minute fight. And we didn't even know it was a state record when we had it on the boat. I had a 30-pound boga scale on my boat, and I maxed it out. I thought it was going to be close to 40, just kind of guessing at it. But I didn't really know until we got back to the marina and hung it up on the scale that it was, I think our marina said 47.6 pounds at the marina. Then I knew it was, we got to get to the bait shop and get this thing weighed.
And the previous state record was held for many, many years. Do you have a feel for how long yours is going to be out there?
I don't know. I would, like to say I'd hold on for a while, but the way how the fishing is right now on Lake Michigan, it has been a really good year. And all my buddies are sending me pictures of really big fish that are pushing 30 pounds. I think I've seen some 30-pound fish already caught. So with the amount of bait fish that's out there, I mean, it could get broke, this fall.
And what has catching that state record fish, what has that done for your business?
Oh, it opened up a whole new different client base. I've had people call from all the way from Missouri, Iowa, wanting to go fishing. And other captains in the area have gotten calls from people that we never would have. It's opened up a whole new network system with me, meeting people that I don't know or that I wouldn't have known. So nothing but positive things have came from this fish that we caught last year.
And you bring up an interesting point, too. This hasn't just been good for you. As you say, it's been good for the Ludington and Lake Michigan fishery and just brought renewed interest back there. So that's good all the way around.
Yep.
Oh, well, listen, Bobby, it was good running into you. I will wish you luck as you, in a few weeks here, make that transition over to Lake Michigan. And I wish you good fishing, and we'll talk again.
All right. Thanks again, Mike. Good luck out there on the bay. I
appreciate that. Captain Bobby Sullivan of Icebreaker Charters, the website icebreakerfishingcharters.com. That's icebreakerfishingcharters.com. Ran into Bobby at Linwood Beach Marina, where he is right now, but not for much longer. He's going to make the trip over to Ludington. I just thought it was interesting to kind of compare and contrast the two different types of fisheries, two of the hottest fisheries in North America. And we've got them right here in the great state of Michigan. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, AR-style, highly accurate, tough, and dependable hunting rifles that could change the way you hunt. They're made in Lansing. I was at the factory last week, took delivery of a new 350 Legend Brenton hunting rifle. Very excited about that. Their website is BrentonUSA.com. That's BrentonUSA.com. I have not shot it yet because I'm fishing. When I get done fishing, I'll turn my attention to that rifle, BrentonUSA.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, Nick Green of MUCC right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM, 1380 AM now, twice each weekend. Thank you, Caleb. Appreciate that. And you can hear us in Escanaba on WCHT AM and FM. That's 600 AM and 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. They continue to innovate, come up with new products, new designs. These guys have been in the archery industry since Fred Bear was around, and they continue to do a great job, and they are a Michigan-based company. You know I love that. Check them out online at boning.com. That's BOHNING. Boning.com. While you're online, head on over to MUCC.org. That's the website of our friends from MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs, a group of which I am a member. Nick Green is their Chief Information Officer, and he's with us now once again on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Nick, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. I'm currently perched in front of an air conditioner.
As you should be all day long. So what's going on in your world, buddy?
We, the conservation community right now is kind of celebrating. So earlier this week on Tuesday, the House of Representatives, U.S. House of Representatives, passed the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. So this is something that's been more than a decade in the making. And really what it means for hunters and anglers and Michiganders is that there's going to be more than 20 million annually coming into the state to help manage species that are vulnerable or, that need a little bit of help. And although that doesn't exactly sound like maybe our hook and bullet world, what it will do is allow us to free up our license and angling dollars to use more towards the things we are passionate about. So currently, hunters and anglers and dollars are kind of subsidizing and doing the work of all game, non-game habitat management. So this is really a win. More money in the coffers. It's going to bolster non-game and game species. It's exciting. It's on par with like the Pittman-Robertson Act and Dingell-Johnson Act.
Really?
In terms of conservation victories. Yep.
Wow. Well, could this in some way, though, I don't mean to be negative here, but could this somehow be used for these non-game species to give them a higher profile that they might somehow become? I'm thinking of Kirtland warbler, right, which kind of got in the way of some hunting in that area. Is there anything like that in the horizon in the future here?
What we have to remember is that it will still be the same department implementing the plans on behalf of game and non-game. So we really have to look at when we're making these management plans, when we're doing compartment reviews, when we're talking about how we manage species as a whole, that we're looking at the broad picture. And I think our current wildlife division is doing a pretty good job of that. They're saying when we cut forests, what species are it benefiting? Are there non-game species we hope to bolster? Do we have to try to close access? Because that's not what MUCC supports. That's not what a lot of hunters would support. So it's a fine line to walk for the department, but I think, sure, as I said, any money is good money that's coming in, and this is by no means going to be bigger or more expansive than hunting and angling dollars. This is just a subsidy to that. Gotcha. How's
the camp coming? Are you guys up and running now?
Yeah, so we are just our director and the assistant director are down there this week. Camp counselor training is next week, and then we will roll into camp season, take a week off for the 4th, and get 5 more weeks after that. So we do hunting, fishing, trapping. We've put 58,000 kids through that since 1946. So it's a great camp. If you're interested, MUCCcamp.org.
I bet you're excited to get that back up and running.
We are. That's just it's a vital piece of conservation today, when you can have a kid and have them for a week and get them unplugged and get them out, hands-on activities for a week straight. It really plants a seed. Even if they don't want to necessarily be a hunter or angler, they're at least going to be an educated voter or say, I understand why we hunt and fish. Yeah. I learned these things. I learned the benefit of what these folks do.
Absolutely.
So there are benefits far greater than just creating a hunter or angler from our youth camp.
Any updates, any news coming out of the consent decree? I know that no news comes out of the consent decree negotiations, but anything at all you can tell us?
By June 30th, our extension is up. So there is likely that we will have, it's going to go one or two. There's several ways it could go. But we should know something by the end of June. So a couple more weeks, we will either have something to work, some framework to work within. It could go to litigation. There are several ways to go, but we should know within a few weeks.
Well, I'm sure you will keep us informed and up to date on that. And once it cools down and you get away from that air conditioner, what are your summertime days? Away from work. What do you do I know you're a big upland bird hunter, but what do you do in the summertime, Nick?
I like to trout fish. When I moved down to central Michigan, I had to kind of lower my standards and start fishing for things like bass and bluegill.
You're going to make some people mad with that statement.
But I've also been invited by folks like you who want to get me out walleye fishing, and I love to eat walleye. I love to eat bluegill. They're my favorite fish to eat. I just enjoy chasing trout, and I grew up around trout streams. So that's what I do a lot in the summer, and then a lot of dog training. But I do look forward to try to getting out and trolling for walleye this summer and catching some bluegill and having a little more of the central southern Michigan fishing experience.
All right, Nick, I wish you luck in those adventures, and I'll wait to hear what the news, if anything, is coming out of there June 30th, and I'll send people to the website, MUCC.org, MUCC.org. By the way, if you want to save 25% on signing up to become a new MUCC member, you can use the promo code Mike, all caps, M-I-K-E, and save 25% to become a member of the Michigan United Conservation Clubs, as I am a proud member of those clubs. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, and it's a question about whitetail fawns and crumpled ears after the break here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Muskegon on WKBZ. That's 1090 AM. You can hear us just up the road in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC, 660 AM and 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends from Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. This segment is your chance to get involved in the content of the show, the programming of the show. You can send a question that you would like me to answer directly, or that you would like me to pass along to somebody in DNR, MUCC, something like that maybe I have access to that might be a little harder for you to get to them. The best way to get me these questions is to send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and in the subject line, put Ask Avery. And that's exactly what happened this week. And I'm not going to use any names because out of respect for, well, you'll get it once you see what's happened here. Somebody sent me an email and said, hey, a friend of mine posted this online making a claim about whitetail fawns and when it's legitimate to pick them up. He said, would you do some research on this? And part of the post was if a woman posted that if the ears are crumpled and the deer was standing up and crying, okay, the crumpled ear tips mean that the fawn is dehydrated and mom is gone. This baby needs help. If you are ever in question about whether or not you need to help this baby, this is the answer. If you find one with crumpled ears, get that baby help. And this is something we've talked about before, right? And my personal opinion is there is never a reason to pick up a whitetail fawn. I don't care if the ears are crumpled or not, but that's just me. I'm not an expert. I'm not a biologist. So what I did was I passed this along to an expert. His name is Chad Stewart. He's the DNR's whitetail specialist. And he said, hey, Mike, I reached out to a veterinarian friend. He said, because they would know even more than Chad. He said, this very topic has been discussed widely at a recent vet group meeting, and the consensus is that no one could say they were familiar with this being a symptom of dehydration. That being said, there was also no explanation for curled or crumpled ears and what might cause it. So while there's no evidence of it being a symptom of dehydration, there's also no real reason for why a fawn's ears might curl. Chad Stewart says, with that being said, it's still no reason to pick up a fawn. Any fawn has a much greater chance of survival if left in the wild to be cared for by its mother. If for some reason the mother is gone or abandons the fawn, it still makes sense to leave the animal alone and in the wild. He says, I know it sounds cold-hearted, but even if that fawn dies out in the wild, as many do, its life will go to feeding and sustaining other wildlife that depend on meat for their own survival. It's the role that deer play in the ecosystem, and it's better to let the cycle play out naturally. Amen to that. I know that, well, the lady who made the post about the crumpled ear is a good-hearted, kind, well-meaning person, but I think she's wrong. Newborn whitetail fawns, and at this point, right, we're not seeing a lot of newborns. We're seeing the fawns that are up and running around, but there are some late fawns every year. There's just, I don't care if you see a dead doe on the side of the road with a fawn next to her. There's no reason to pick that fawn up. What is the goal of this, right? You want to save that animal's life, which is an honorable, decent goal. I get it. But by saving for number one, it's illegal, right? Unless you are a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, which the odds are very good that you're not. It is illegal to possess a wild animal here in Michigan. You don't have the right to do it. It belongs to the state of Michigan. It does not belong to you, and you can't pick it up. So that's number one. Number two, the moral ethics of it all. I know you're trying to do the right thing. I know you want to save that baby deer's life. But if you bring an animal out of the wild and bring it into a domestic situation, are you actually even helping that animal? Is it good to take a wild animal and make a pet out of it? Is that the way Mother Nature designed that animal to live? No. So I get it. You're just trying to help out, but don't look at crumpled ears as a sign that you're allowed to pick up a fawn in the wild, because it doesn't work that way. So, hey, listen, thank you for the email. And I appreciate you bringing this topic to light again. And Chad Stewart, thank you for your input as well. I appreciate that. And also appreciate the folks at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Again, their website, securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. It's time to take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our final hour this week, we're heading to northern Michigan to talk with Jim Chamberlain. He's a fishing guide there, talking about fishing trout and salmon on inland lakes here in our great state of Michigan. And, of course, wild game chef Dave Minar will help us wrap it all up. That's coming up at hour 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. Happy Father's Day weekend to you if you are a dad. Hope you get a chance to enjoy this day as you would like. In my family, it was my dad who got me involved in the outdoors, and I think it's that way in many families, though not all. But dads play a big role in our lives. My dad's been gone a few years now, and I still miss him, though I know I will see him again. So what else is going on? Let's see. Our state has such a wide range of activity. I started out the show in the first hour talking about nighttime, summertime predator hunting. Then checked in with Captain Bobby Sullivan in hour number 2 comparing his Saginaw Bay walleye fishing earlier in the summer. He'll soon be jumping over to Lake Michigan to fish big king salmon and trout. And now I want to head to northern Michigan and talk with Jim Chamberlain of Fish with Jim Outfitters, fishwithjimoutfitters.com, about what he's involved in this time of year. Jim, welcome back to the show. How have you been?
I've been great, Mike, and yourself?
I've been doing real good. I've been down here chasing walleye on Saginaw Bay, having a good time out there on the Angler Quest. You're an Angler Quest guy, too, I remember.
I am. Yeah, we've been doing a little bit of fun on Torch Lake and Elk Lake, chasing lake trout, steelhead, and Atlantic salmon.
See, I find that fascinating because when I think Lakers, steelhead, and Atlantics, I think the big water.
Yeah, Torch is kind of the big water.
Well, I know, yeah, but it's not a great lake.
No, it's not. And it's the only inland lake that we have around here that has salmon in it. There used to be one down south, too, but that stocking program has been discontinued as of late.
Well, and by targeting those fish, though, you have really created a very interesting and cool niche offering to your clients.
It is. It's a really neat fishery for sure. I mean, it's the lake trout are a special strain here. We catch a lot of them, obviously, especially in the summer once the salmon move off the banks and become a little bit more spread out. But in the spring, I mean, we've done pretty well on the Atlantics this spring too. 4 to 6 a trip on average. We've had some days that have been even better than that, but for the most part, it's 4 to 6 fish a trip.
Now, are you targeting those fish, or are they incidental catch?
No, we're targeting them. Doing the high-speed trolling with high lead cores and downriggers and some slide divers mixed in too. Same program that you would do up in Detour, which we're going to be headed there on Saturday for 2 weeks too. Oh, I want to talk to you about that coming up. This whole concept of Atlantics, I've never seen one, never caught one, but I am fascinated by them. Good fighter, good eating, good fish. Yeah. I like them for eating better than any of the other salmon that we have. Cohos are, a really strong second. But the Atlantics, they seem to have more marbling in the flesh. And they're just they're an interesting fighting fish. They do a lot of swimming directly to the boat and then go crazy at the boat. There's two different personalities of them. Some of them are crazy right away, and then they come in almost like a walleye, I would say. And then you get them in the boat, and they go crazy in the boat. Kind of like something that I've seen in Florida, like with the mahi-mahis. Yeah. You get them in the boat, and, the guys that I fish with down there tell you to get away from them because they can hurt you. And these Atlantics will do the same thing in the boat. They just go crazy. But, some of them we did catch one freak-size one a couple weeks ago, and that thing jumped as high as the radar arch on the Angler Quest. Oh, my goodness. It was exciting. That was a 34-inch, 15-pound one that was just a freak. Now, that's unusually big for an Atlantic there? No, these fish that we're catching right now, they've only been in the lake for 2 years, so they're 22 to 27, and you'll get an occasional one that's 28, inches long, and this one was just a big one. It just found the right food and got a lot bigger than the rest of them. Those 3 lakes that you talked about earlier that you guide on up there in God's country, I got to believe in the summertime, though, Jim, that you must get a lot of recreational boat traffic out there. We do, and, like with Elk Lake's a little bit more tame than Torch. So, we put in on the Torch River so we can go to either lake. So if we see the boat traffic getting really bad on Torch, we'll just go over to Elk in the afternoon, and it's exponentially lighter traffic over there than it is here. And are you targeting these fish? I know you said riggers and such. Do you target them like you would out in the Great Lakes? Yeah, same idea. For the lake trout, we use a lot of 8-inch E-chip style flashers with spinning glows, or, we'll drop spoons down, you're fishing bottom, wire divers on bottom, which, sometimes when you're in 280 feet of water and that's where the fish are, that's a long setback on them, 600-700 feet of line out on them things to get them down deep enough to get those fish.
Well, how deep is that lake?
It's over 300 in a couple of spots.
Wow.
But, the mass majority of it is, I would say, 240 to 260, out in the middle. And then, the banks are really steep. They'll go from, 10 feet to 150 in a football field.
Wow. And is it rock or is it sand?
Sand, the majority of it.
So you can bounce bottom and you don't have to worry about losing everything.
Well, there's still logs out there, though. Even in that deep water, I had my kids out the other day, and we hooked a log, and I thought it was a fish because it was banging like a fish, but it was a 3-inch in diameter log that we caught, about a 7-foot long. I mean, it made us pull every piece of gear we had up, as we have had some lake trout to the back of the boat this year that have been really, really big. We lost one that was well over 20 at the back of the boat.
Wow.
We've caught this week, 4 or 5 of them that have been, 12 to 15 pounds too. So, there's quite a few bigger lake trout swimming around in these lakes too.
Well, and you're just coming off a trip. You had a charter this morning, didn't you, Jim?
I did. Yeah, we ended up, I think, 7 Lakers and 1 Atlantic this morning.
And is that an average? That a good day? Average day?
That's good. I mean, we only had 2 people out with us, so your limits are 3 fish a person. So we limited out and caught a couple when we were pulling lines and fishing back.
It's not going to matter to you there on that big, beautiful angler quest that can handle just about any type of water. But I would think the inland lakes up there, if somebody's got a smaller boat yet they still want to fish for salmon, that would be a good option.
It's great. Yeah. You can always find a place to fish here. The lake is accessible, all around. That's one of the problems you have with the Great Lakes. If you get a onshore wind on one of the Great Lakes and you got a 20-foot lund, you might get beat up a little bit. Here, if you get a west wind, you go to the west side of the lake. You go to the east wind, you go to the east side of the lake, and you can always be in some sort of fishable conditions. The lake does run north and south, both torch and elk. So if you get a straight north or a straight south wind, it can get rough out there. 3-4 foot. Occasionally bigger.
Really?
But it's got to be the right angle. It's got to have enough time to build.
I just think I have no experience on those waters at all, but to even imagine an inland lake that's over 200 feet deep and it's got salmon and trout in it just drives me crazy. That's so cool. Yeah,
it's awesome. I mean, the DNR doesn't get a lot of credit these days, but, in this case, if we can keep this going, I mean, they've got something really, really unique and special here. I mean, it's a nice fishery, and Elk Lake has steelhead in it too. Last couple seasons, it hasn't been what it was when I first found it. I mean, you can go out there and get 20 bites in a half day. Now it's 4 or 5, but you can get some really, really nice sized fish. The biggest one we've seen out there has been 15 pounds.
Wow.
And those fish run the Rapid River in the wintertime, so they are actually behaving like regular steelhead. This is just it's a micro Great Lakes setting.
Oh. We're talking with Captain Jim Chamberlain of Fish with Jim Outfitters, the website fishwithjimoutfitters.com. Got to take a break. I know Jim said he can stick around for a few more minutes. I want to talk to him about, he said something that got my attention here. When he first found that steelhead fishery. I want to talk with him more about that. And now I know he's headed up to Drummond Island as well. An area that I have spent a little bit of time on, but not a lot. I want to get his thoughts on what he's going to do up there. I think he's going to have a little family fun and do some fishing as well. I want to talk with him about the fishing there. And, of course, later in the hour, wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar will join us. I do not know what recipe the chef has in mind for us this week, but you can bet it's going to be a good one. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me if you have questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, questions for the Ask Avery segment. That's how to get in touch with me, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. And you can hear us in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM and 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Versa Skins, Michigan-based Versa Skins. They come up with a great concept. Rather than buy several different suits, hunting suits, in patterns and such, why not just buy one good quality set of hunting clothes, gear, and then change the camo pattern for whatever it is that you're doing? You can snap on and zip on an outer shell in a new pattern in just a few seconds. Literally, I bet you it doesn't take a minute. And these shells, these outer shells, are very, very inexpensive. So you've got good, high quality hunting clothes that you can change the pattern easily, quickly, and inexpensively. I think they've done a great job, a great concept. Learn more on their website, versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. Just change your skin for the season you're in, versaskins.com. Right now I'm talking with Jim Chamberlain of Fish with Jim Outfitters. His website, fishwithjimoutfitters.com, fishwithjimoutfitters.com. Jim, before the break, you said something about a steelhead fishery. You said, when I first found it, does that mean that wasn't really being exploited at that point? This is something you uncovered?
Honestly, well, I wouldn't say I uncovered it, but, there's not really that great of information out here. It's not like you can go to a bait shop and say, hey, I want to go catch some inland lake steelhead, where can I go? The bait shop guys are going to look at you and say, I don't know. The anglers are far and few between up here. So, you have to go out and put your time in. There's a couple charter boats on Torch Lake, and that's it. And a handful of recreational anglers that we run into that do the salmon and trout. Same thing on Elk Lake. And then there's a few, handful of bass guys too, but, there's just not, the information doesn't flow like it does in Saginaw Bay or Lake Erie or Lake Michigan, It's just not there.
Because you're not heading out on the Great Lakes, a navigable waterway, do you not have to be licensed by the Coast Guard to be a captain? Can you get around that?
You either have to be licensed by the Coast Guard, or the state of Michigan has what they call an inland pilot license. Mm-hmm. And you have to possess that. You still have to go through your boat inspections and same deal. But I do fish Grand Traverse Bay as well as Detour. So I still have to be, licensed by the Coast Guard to,
gotcha.
To do those fisheries too.
Gotcha. So I jumped around you. Going back to the steelhead question. So were you out saying, hey, I want to see if there's steelhead in there, see if I can find them, or were you fishing for something else and hooked into some steelhead?
Well, when I first moved up here in 2014, the idea was to target the Atlantics and Torch. There was a really good population of them at that time, and I just thought, because the lakes were connected, that there's a good possibility there's some Atlantics in here too. And then to our surprise, they were steelhead instead of Atlantics. You catch an occasional Atlantic there, and I think we got 3 last year. We've hit 1 this year so far, but it seems like those fish just stay in Torch for the most part. And there's the steelhead fishery here it's pretty good, in the middle of the summer.
Well, and if I remember right, you chase them in the springtime in the rivers too, don't you?
I do. We do the Jordan River. That's a Great Lakes tributary, though. It flows into Lake Charlevoix, but all those fish come out of Lake Michigan. And then we fish the Sturgeon River, too, and all of those steelhead come out of Burton Mullet Lake. So there's a second, inland steelhead fishery up there that the fish can actually run, a pretty decent sized river and do exactly what they do in all the other, Great Lakes streams.
You sure picked a nice area to move up to, Jim.
It's gorgeous up here. We're just now starting to get to the season where, we're seeing a lot of recreational boats, as you mentioned. This is probably more boats today than I've seen in a long time, because it's up until yesterday, it was still 40 degrees in the morning and, 65 for a high. So, the people aren't coming out and trying to jump into the water, so.
Well, and you said you're headed north, too. You take a little family vacation, but you're going to do some fishing while you're up there, I would imagine. Yeah, we
do the guided trips in the morning. We just do 1 7-hour trip a day up there. We'll try to book 8 to 10 days up there while we're up there and, take people who are in pursuit of Atlantic salmon as well. And, some years we go up there and it's really good. And some years those fish just don't have to be at the mouth of that river up there. So some years you just don't time it right. And some years you do. And it sounds like this year it sounds like there's some fish being caught. So that's a good thing.
Do you pull the Angler Quest up there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How is that boat to tow? Because I've spent a lot of time on an Angler Quest, but very little time on the road with an Angler Quest behind me. What's that like?
It's fine. I mean, I tow it with an F350 diesel, but honestly, my truck was in the shop earlier in the year, and I had one of my buddies grab it with a 1500 Chevy pickup truck with a 4-cylinder in it, and it did just fine. I probably wouldn't want to tow it long distances with something like that, but it seems to be fine. It's just got a lot of wind drag on it.
Sure.
It's not, as they're not heavy boats. What are they, 3,500 pounds? They're not super heavy boats, but the wind can affect them.
Yeah.
And I know recently they made some changes to them where you can lay that radar arch down.
Yes.
And that makes a big difference. You wouldn't think so, but I'm sure that if I didn't have that radar arch up, that my fuel economy would be a mile or two a gallon better.
Yeah, and it's $6 a gallon. That starts to make a big deal.
Yeah, we can have a whole nother radio show.
We're not going to go down that road today, are we?
No, I just filled up. It's expensive on the water right now.
When you go to Detour and you target these Atlantics, are you fishing them differently than you would downstate, or is it just the same program?
It's pretty much the same deal. You've got to pay attention to what's inside their stomachs there. So, and match the hatch. So, like, there will be times when they have sticklebacks in them up there, and then we'll put, like, junior and stinger size, scorpion size spoons out. And then, there'll be times when they have alewives in them. There'll be times when they have smelt in them. And you just, basically what I do when I clean one of them, you just take a look at what's in there and you match the spoon size to that. And it seems like that's what my success is built on. There's a lot of people up there that run Magnum spoons and standard size spoons and catch them. But, I do a lot with the smaller walleye stuff up there with them.
Do you expect you'll run into some pinks while you're up there?
We'll get one or two probably, but we will catch more kings. There's a stocking of a large stocking in Lake Huron at Nuns Creek. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know it's well over 100,000. And where that St. Mary's River dumps into Lake Huron, you get a really nice estuary water. So a lot of times you'll have dirty water dumping into clean water, and when you get on those breaks, as most people know, that those fish target those places to feed. And bait fish target those places. You might have 3 or 4 degrees of water temperature change right there too. Not only with dirty water, clean water mixing. And that's just a bait fish magnet, and the kings will be there. There will be lake trout there, steelhead, and Atlantics, all mixed in.
Are your clients there when you go to Drummond? Are they locals who want to get out with you? Are these people that follow you from downstate or what?
No, actually, they're from all over the place. Fishing 411 television did a couple segments up there, and I get a lot of clients from those guys. You know, basically they'll field a call from somebody who's interested, and they'll send them my way a lot of times. And we had people from Pennsylvania last year, Texas, you know, all kinds of weird places. And we do have some of our regular clients that, you know, will book that trip too, just for something different. So
you'll be up in Drummond for a couple of weeks, then you'll head back downstate. And how long then will you chase these Atlantics and Steelhead and Lakers?
All the way until about August 15th.
Okay.
And then we'll go to Grand Traverse Bay, you know, because the Kings will start showing up there in Grand Traverse Bay. And we always, you know, the way that I like to look at my trips is I always want a chance at something silver in the box, not only lake trout, but it's like a variety thing. You know, it's nice to have a couple different species on your trips, not just target one thing.
Well, and I love the way that you're not tied to one port or one area to fish. I mean, you can bounce around wherever you need to go. That's where you can take your clients. And I think that makes you a pretty unique, in a lot of ways, service.
Yeah, and, you know, there's a lot of that going on now too. You know, a lot of guys have figured out that you don't need the 30-foot boat to charter these lakes. You just have to be smart about looking at wind and saying, hey, you know, guys, maybe this isn't such a good idea to go here, but we can do this because there's a bay or protection in places. You know, there's a lot of ways you can be mobile, you know, nowadays.
Yeah, and you know, if the Angler Quest can't handle it, most anglers, myself included, can't handle it either. So,
well, you don't. I mean, it takes the fun out of it.
Yeah,
I always
exactly.
tell my clients,
Exactly.
So, you know, this isn't the deadliest catch. We don't have to be. You know, I mean, this isn't something that we're relying on for our food. You know, this is something that we're doing for recreation. And if it's not going to be fun, what are we doing?
I'm going to steal that line. I love that line.
It's great. Everybody laughs about it.
Jim, listen, Jim Chamberlain, I'm going to let you get on to your family vacation. I appreciate you letting me bug you for a few minutes. I'll send people to the website, fishwithjimoutfitters.com, fishwithjimoutfitters.com. Have fun, Jim.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Have a good one, man.
I certainly will. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, a few more things to talk about, and then, of course, wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar will join me to wrap up this week's show. Pat, this show has flown. Yeah, Pat's shaking his head, too. It's like this one, we're like 2 hours and 35 minutes into a 3-hour show, and it feels not at all like that. But you know what? When you like what you're doing and you have fun, time seems to fly. We'll take a break. More coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery, also known as the Big Guy. Glad to have you along with us. You know, you can hear the Outdoor Magazine radio show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WHTC in Holland. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. Staying on that side of the state, in Manistee, WMLQ, 97.7 FM. And let's jump over to the other side of the state, the east side of the state. In Saginaw, you can hear the show on WSGW AM 790 and 100.5 FM. In fact, I'm in the studios right now of WSGW for this 3 hours. This one small corner, this one tiny corner of the building is known as the Outdoor Magazine studio. I borrowed part of Pat Johnston's studio. He graciously lets me sit here. Pat is running the board this week, doing a wonderful job as always. Pat, I appreciate that. Also appreciate the support of Reader Landscaping. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. They can also do maintenance. They can do landscaping. They can put in a pool if you want. Reader can, honestly, one call takes care of everything. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. I find myself during the break thinking about the conversation with Jim Chamberlain from Fish with Jim Outfitters. His website, again, fishwithjimoutfitters.com. And he's talking about Torch Lake being, 240 feet deep in an inland lake. I've never been on Torch Lake. I've been all over the state. I've never been on Torch Lake. But for a guy who spends his whole summer on Saginaw Bay fishing nothing more than pretty much 25 feet of water, to me, well, same thing with Lake Michigan. When I used to fish kings off Frankfurt or Manistee and go out there past the drop-off, it's like, wow, our state has so many different wonderful areas and water, resources, and people. I think about that as this Father's Day weekend. If you are a dad, happy Father's Day to you. Happy Father's Day to my father-in-law, Jury, my son, James. In my world, in my growing up, it was my dad who introduced me to the outdoors. And I know in his case, it was his dad, my grandpa, who introduced him to the outdoors. I think about this. My grandpa was a hunter and a fisherman. My dad, there's 2. Me, there's 3. My son James, there's 4. His kids, my grandkids, there's 5 generations right there. Now, I will never see a 6th generation, but I'm confident that there will be a 6th generation. And there were generations in my family before that, before my granddad. For many of us who listen to this show, well, for many of me, I'm on the show. It is part of our family history and tradition, the outdoor lifestyle, hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and just loving to be outdoors and being part of Mother Nature is just part of who we are. It's part of how we grew up. It's part of how we identify ourselves. But I find it very rewarding when I hear from people on a fairly regular basis that, Avery, we don't hunt or fish. They say, Avery, I don't hunt or fish. But I listen to your show, and I like listening to your show. I find it interesting. I find your guests interesting, and I find I learn a lot. Well, if this show can appeal to non-hunters and anglers, I am ecstatic. It will never appeal to the anti-hunters and anglers, but I don't care. I just don't care. In this world, you've got 10% of the people on one end of the spectrum who are hardcore anti-gun, anti-hunter, anti-fishing, or whatever. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got people like me who are pro-responsible gun ownership, pro-hunting, pro-fishing. And then in this world, you got the 80% of people who they're non-participants. They're not anti, they're not passionate pro, but they're just, they haven't been exposed to it. They didn't grow up that way like I did. Nobody took the time to teach them, so they just don't know. So they're ignorant, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but they just don't know about the outdoor lifestyle. Well, that 80% right there, if we can talk with them and portray ourselves in a positive manner to them, then we can win the battle. We're never going to convince the antis. They're crazy, whack job. They just don't get it. They're never going to sway us because we are firm in what we believe. But those 80% of people in the middle who are non-participants because they don't know any better, those are the ones who will make a difference. Get them on our side by portraying ourselves as the good stewards of the resource that we are, by encouraging them to come out and, go hunting or fishing with us. Not putting stupid stuff on social media, which is kind of an oxymoron, right? Not putting stupid stuff on social media. Isn't that basically what social media is? At least that's what I thought when I saw the comments about me holding my new Brenton USA hunting rifle. You would have thought I was a terrorist. But I get off track, and there's not time to do that right now. Because it is time to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we will wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. I don't know what he has planned, but as a guy who's eaten a lot of Dave Minar's meals over the years, I can tell you it will be a good one. And that's coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. This is the Outdoor Magazine radio show. My name is Mike Avery, and I love to wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, a guy I've known for many, many years now. He was a big part of the Outdoor Magazine television show. It's hard to believe I even had a television show at this point. I did for a long, long time, more than 20 years. Glad it's gone. Glad to be doing radio these days. I find it much more rewarding, and to be honest, I find it easier as well. But even though I've made the transition from TV and radio over just to radio and podcasting, my good friend, wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, is still a big part of the show, and he helps us wrap up each week's show, and he's here once again. David, welcome back. How are you?
I am doing just great. We've had some sunny weather and a little hot, but man, oh man, it's nice. It's like Michigan.
There, just like we live in Michigan.
Yeah, hot and humid.
Hey, Dave, we've talked about salmon fishing a fair amount in this week's show. Would I throw you off if I said, can you come up with a salmon recipe for us?
No, I got one. I anticipated your every move.
Well, yes, because you're clairvoyant. What do you got for us?
I got a salmon fillet primavera, and this is for 4 portions. This is like a real summery kind of a meal, you know. It's great. So you need about 8 to 10 ounces of boneless, skinless fish fillet per person, 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter, a couple ounces of white wine, and whatever wine you're drinking with this meal, I would suggest to cook with it. So it has that nice connotation to it. Juice of a lime or a lemon, whichever you prefer, 2 to 3 cloves of garlic chopped up fine, either fresh or dried basil. It's up to you. Fresh basil has a little more kick to it, which I really like. And whatever kind of fresh vegetables you need, you're going to end up with maybe a cup and a half per person. So if you wanted snap peas, broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, whatever you think is good for your family or the diners that you're cooking for, a couple of beaten up eggs, flour, and olive oil. So you're going to coat the fish with flour and then dip them in the beaten up eggs and then put a little olive oil in a pretty hot pan because you want to brown this off. And then place the fillets skin side up in the pan. And then after it's nice and brown, you can peek a little bit, you know, and then turn it over so both sides are nice and brown. Place that in a casserole. And you might want to wipe out the pan if you want to use the same pan and with a paper towel, and add just a little more olive oil and the butter at this point. And the white wine, the lemon juice or lime juice, the basil, the garlic, and cook it a little while. And then maybe a minute or two just to kind of break that flavor loose because the garlic should be kind of cooked. And add the vegetables. And then cook it for just a minute or two, you know, maybe 3 minutes. Kind of steam that through a bit because you want these vegetables al dente. So then you're going to add the half and half. I would say about 2 cups of half and half. So you get about a half a cup of half and half per person. And reduce that down, uncovered. And then pour that over the fish and bake it for, well, they got fish started on both sides already, so maybe 8 minutes. Uncovered, and then it's kind of reduced down. And if you so desire, you could take some Parmesan cheese and mix into there a little bit, kind of, because the Parmesan will act like a thickener. If you like it thicker, do that. If not, just top with Parmesan at the end when you put all of this on the plate. It's just a real, you know, you put red pepper in it and carrots and broccoli, and you're cooking it al dente, so they're still going to be nice and vibrant color-wise. It's just really an eye-appealing dish.
It might be obvious, but what does al dente mean?
Not overcooked, like pasta. When you're cooking your pasta, you want it just a teeny bit crunchy so that it's not all mush, you know, and the vegetables, the same thing. You're going to cook them a little bit and not fully done all the way like mush, you know, like some people cook green beans like that or whatever.
Sure.
You know, if you really want them mushy, by all means, cook it that way.
Yeah. How do you know, Dave, when fish is done?
All right. If you take your finger and you touch that fish in its raw state while it's on your cutting board or on a plate or something, remember that feel. It's going to give a lot. And when the fish is done, so you don't even have to poke a fork in it or anything like that, when it's nice and firm, it's definitely going to be done. Like, you know, you want to cook the salmon very little in the beginning, and then when you put it in the sauce, that's going to give you the steaming effect through, and it's going to keep it nice and juicy and real flavorful. So, or you could take in 2 forks and then pull a little bit apart and make sure that it looks like it's opaque instead of the raw form when you started.
Gotcha.
Either way, it's up to you.
Well, another great recipe and some great wild game cooking tips. Well, I think that's all we got time for this week, so we'll talk to you next time, David. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I will try my best not to surprise you, and I know you will come up with another great recipe as you do for us every week, my friend.
Thank you. Call me when you're done.
It'll be a little bit, but I will. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you, because if you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do the show, and then I don't know what I would do. I really don't. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can always reach out to me. Questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, topics, guests, you name it. Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My name is Mike Avery, and I will talk with you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.